This is Dodger Talk. David Vassegh with you until 8 o'clock tonight here on AM 570 LA Sports. And this man needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one. He certainly became a cult hero and a fan favorite in his short time with the Dodgers. He's a world champion, two-time world champion. He's a man that you don't want to mess with on the streets of Riverside. And now he's an author. That's right. Joe Kelly has a book coming out, A Damn Near Perfect Game, written with the great Rob Manfred. And your guy and my guy, Joe Kelly, joins us now back on Dodger Talk. Joe, thank you for coming on. Appreciate it.
What an introduction. I mean, that's electric, Vassegh. Thank you for hyping me up. I would have liked if you would have said author first before two-time World Series champion. But hey, it's great to be back on Dodger Talk. It's been a while, my friend.
Yes. Do you have like a pipe in the side of your mouth? Are you smoking a tobacco pipe right now since your Shakespearean debut as an author is on the horizon?
No, it's more of me just staring at some contemporary art pieces by drinking some Pinot Noir in my backyard right now.
That's great. Hey, are you still in the major leagues? Do you still pitch?
I do still pitch. I'm out in the South Side now. So it's one of those things I was debating of, hey, should I give up my last year on this contract or should I go full steam and just, spread the word of knowledge from here on out in my career through writing. Well,
there'll be, instead of baseballs over the fences at White Sox camp this spring, there's going to be a bunch of books for you to sign. And, this is, we've heard that you wanted to make baseball fun, but now you've written a book about it. A Damn Near Perfect Game is the title. What made Joe Kelly write a book and put into words everything you were feeling about the direction of the game?
I mean, that's a great question. And honestly, it was something that, came across with obviously me and Rob Manfred. He mentioned something, he's like, hey man, you're so good on podcasts. You're so good at, speaking your mind and, whatever you say usually is pretty spot on. He's like, when you're done playing, we need to write a book together. I was like, yeah, for sure. When I'm done playing, like, I'd love to write a book. Like it's something that it intrigues me. You might think I'm retarded, but I'm not. I went to a UC school, which is pretty high standard for education. And so, we pitched this idea, a few years back, and then obviously we had COVID, and then after COVID we had the lockout, right? And so during that lockout, it was one of those things where, I was tired of getting asked the same question over and over and over. When are we going to play baseball again? Why are you guys being so greedy? Why can't you come to an agreement? Like, whenever you guys start playing again, I'm not going to watch. And, that kind of, pissed me off a little bit. And so, take it a step further from that point, I sat down in my house one night and, ultimately what led me to write the piece in the Times. I wrote this, letter to the fans, like, trying to explain the best I can, from my heart. Because deep down inside, it might not look like I love baseball, but I do. It's very, very close to my heart. So, I wrote this little piece and, the Times put it out. And then from there, things kind of started picking up. It ended up doing pretty well. And, Rob came back and said, hey, we should write the book. And, after that came out, there's publishers going like, hey, we were thinking about writing a book. And, publishers started kind of just lining up to kind of do interviews and see the process of maybe we should write a book now. And I think there was just no better time, honestly, with the past few years with baseball. Like I said, the lockouts, all these rule changes coming in. And, everyone has their own story about how they came to, love the game of baseball. And everyone's is different, but some are very similar. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Kind of just, like I said, after that piece came out in the LA Times, it kind of just steamrolled from there.
I've read the book. It's a great book, an easy read, and you could feel the passion that you have and the care that you have for the game. And one chapter that I thought was really interesting that I never knew about was one of the chapters you have dedicated to the commissioner, and it's titled The Commissioner Speaks. We all know about him going to White Sox camp, but we never knew that you had your own personal one-on-one meeting with Rob Manfred last year, and you transcribed the conversation. Did you feel, A, that he was being genuine in that conversation, and did he know you were recording the conversation?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where, after the lockout, obviously Manfred and the players weren't on the same page the whole time. And, there was a lot of animosity, honestly. And, what helped was with Rob obviously wanted to save grace with the players, and, it should be a mutual respect for each other. And so he started going around the camps, talking to the leaders of the team. And, we had great conversations. And from there on, I had his cell phone number, and, he's like, hey, I love what you said in our meetings, about how we could change the game a little bit. I just sat there and said, hey, if you're gonna change rules, you need to talk to the players first. And, what kind of opened my eyes to Manfred, going into the thing, I'm going to say I hate him. I very disliked him, obviously, through our past history with suspensions and stuff. But, we started texting back and forth, and he's like, I really appreciate what you said and all these things. And like I said, it opened my eyes to him. He's ultimately a human being. He's in a tough spot. He works for the owners, and then he tries to save grace to the players, and he's kind of the odd man out, obviously. And so, I just asked the question. I said, hey, I'm writing a book, Rob, and I said, hey, would you mind if we sat down or via phone call, whatever it is, and we had a conversation, and would you be willing to be part of my book? I didn't expect it to be a whole chapter, honestly. But the conversation that we had turned into be a pretty good and deep conversation, and ultimately it turned into, in my book, it's a whole chapter of me and him talking back and forth. Ideas of rules, and how can we get which people aren't going to like. I said, how can we get people to watch baseball again? And a big part of that was, kind of limiting the blackouts. And obviously, Spectrum is not going to like what I wrote, but I think it's ultimately the biggest thing that stops, the views coming in. These regional, local cable networks, signing these big time deals and these contracts to, televise the games and then black you out on the MLB app. But yeah, I mean, Rob was great, and he was willing to be in the book, and he's willing to have a conversation recorded. And that's probably, I know it's the first time he ever pretty much had a one-on-one deep conversation like that with a player, and all it was is just a question. Like, I'd like, hey, if he says no, he says no. But I just wanted to ask him, and then he said yes. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Honestly, Joe, that is the most candid conversation I have heard between a player and the commissioner. We've heard about him having talks, but we never know the details. For you to have the transcription of it, it shows a different side to Rob Manfred and, frankly, the relationship he has with a player like yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's what people need to see. Because if you're a fan, most fans don't like the commissioners. NBA fans like Silver. Goodell's not liked very much. But as a player, usually you see other sports like talking to the commissioners, and then you see Manfred, and it was not that feel. As players, you didn't have that. You're kind of out of touch with what he's saying and what the players are saying, and like I said, I think on a whole it was authentic by him. I didn't add any words. Like what is in that chapter is exactly what was said, and so I think it's going to shine light on he's just another guy with a title, you know what I mean? And he's doing the best of his ability, because, in a part of that chapter, it's talking about the rules and like, hey man, like you need to talk to the players before the rules, you change it. He's like, that's why, honestly, I haven't implemented the rules, because legally Manfred could do any rule he wants, right? He could put it in the game and say, F off players, this is what it is. And he could have done it 3 years ago, but like he was kind of, starting in the minor leagues and, started talking about it instead of just going, implementing the rule. I think that shows the mutual respect he actually has for the game. And, he's like, I would never put a rule in without, getting an idea from the players. You know what I mean? And so when people read that and people see what he says in that chapter, I think, the average fan of baseball, or even, the diehard, is going to, have a little bit of change of heart for Rob.
A Damn Near Perfect Game is the title of the book. It's coming out February 28th, and it's written by your favorite, Joe Kelly. And the pouty face is on the cover. And I got to be honest with you, Joe, the juicy part that Dodger fans want to know is that brush up with Carlos Correa. And you started the book with, and the first chapter is all about the pouty face and striking out Correa. I mean, you did not make us wait that long to read about it.
No, I mean, if you know, I've always hated the finale being at the end because, you know, you watch a movie and you know exactly what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and for myself, I've always been the guy not to shy away from, you know, the honest answer or, you know, being myself or being candid. And I think, you know, that whole situation with me and Carlos, I think it was, you know, perfect to start off the book that way. You know, let people know, like, hey, this is me, this is real, and I want you guys to understand, you know, what's really happened. And what's cool in the book is, you know, I go in depth of you know, kind of behind the scenes, you know, ultimately to, you know, us in the bubble that year, you know, winning the World Series. You know, there's a part about where, you know, if the Astros would have won and we would have played in the World Series.
Yeah.
MLB was kind of panicking and trying to figure out what to do.
Were you really
with
in the book?
Astros staying in the same hotel.
Yeah, you wrote in the book that you would have waited for the Astros to come through the lobby of the bubble hotel. Would you really have done that?
100%. I would have. My wife knows that. She could vouch for me. You know, we had twins at the time, and she said, "Okay, you could do what you want to do." And you know, there's a part where, you know, MLB tried to go behind my back while I was practicing, you know, at the field. You know, try to have a conversation with my wife, saying, "Hey, if the Astros win, you need to tell your husband pretty much to simmer down and not do anything." And you know, she basically flat out laughs at him and say, "Good luck. You know, I can't even do that." So there's just these little ticky-tacky parts, behind-the-scenes stuff that, you know, people don't know about. I think, you know, that they're going to end up loving.
No doubt. It's great. And it's also, not only do you give the fans behind the scenes on the whole Correa incident and what would have happened if you played each other in the World Series, but also you gave fans a peek behind the curtain at the White House. And the Joe Kelly we're hearing right now, you did not change at the White House. You came strong to the vice president and the president when they were looking at your clothes, and you promised your teammate Walker Buehler you would introduce yourself as two-time.
That is one of my favorite things all the time. And Walker is his favorite thing to tell people about. You know, when he has a story about Joe Kelly, he'll mention that. And it ultimately kind of started out as a dare, but not really. You know, Walker said I wouldn't do it, but yeah, you know, we had Madam Vice President, you know, walk around, shake everyone's hands, introduce yourself. You introduce, and I said, Walker, you dare me to introduce myself as Joe, two-time Kelly. You know, nice to meet you, but I've been invited to this White House more times than you have. And he's like, you won't do it. You won't do it. And I was like, all right. And so she comes around, and that's exactly what I said. And after she shook Bueller's hand after me, it was Buehler pretty much crouched over dying. And, you know, she took it well, and she loved it. She laughed, and she responded. She goes, okay, two-time, nice to meet you. I'm like, all right, this is great. Yeah, there's so many things in it. And
so
I think,
great.
You know, people are going to love it. It was fun. And, you know, for myself, being me is what I like to do. And, you know, that's how I kind of wrote it. You know, like the best way to explain it is, you know, I love doing podcasts and, you know, I'm always true to myself there. So, you know, writing a book, I wasn't going to change. So I kind of wanted to make it an easy read where it'd be, you know, a podcast, but in, you know, a version of a book where, you know, you could pretty much read along and you know, read through 5 chapters in, you know, a day, or, you know, read the whole book in a day. But yeah, it was definitely a fun experience and something that, you know, is different for me, but, you know, I like new challenges, and it was a great experience.
All right. So Joe Kelly, you mentioned the podcast. You love doing interviews. You know, when you write a book, then a lot of people put it on audio where people can listen to it in the car. Any chance Joe Kelly does an audio version of the book for everybody to listen to?
So there is going to be an audio version from Audible.
Yeah.
And so I sent my voice in. I read a few pages. They came back and ultimately said thanks, but no thanks.
What? I want to hear Joe Kelly's voice.
And the excuse they made is good. It could be true. You know, time's winding down. I don't really have much time. I told them, besides a few days of recording, which they would probably need more, they said. And with the book being, you know, coming out February 28th, they decided it would be best to go with a voice actor, who that's all they do, where they don't have other commitments. So I would have loved to do it. I interviewed, I sent my voice in, so I did audition. But unfortunately, time is not on our side. It comes out in a few weeks, and, we need to get the audio version, ready same day.
All right. Well, this will be the closest version of Joe Kelly's brand new book that's coming out February 28th, A Damn Near Perfect Game. This is the Cliff Notes audio version, and we could talk about it all night long, but I want everybody to buy it, so I'm not going to give away any more tips. And before I let you go, Joe, just the connection you had with Dodger fans to this day. I know you were beloved in St. Louis. Boston loved you, but there seems to be something different here in L.A., and you weren't even here that long.
You said it right. I mean, Boston fans, obviously, my time there, they loved it. I would kind of say that it's a different kind of, passionate. Like, they see me as a baseball player. And in LA, where I was home, and became, I guess a fan favorite, I feel like it was more family connected. You know what I mean? It came from more of like a love aspect, or like, hey, he's one of us type of guys.
Yeah.
And, it's crazy. I mean, I just literally yesterday, or 2 days ago, I came back from Mexico. Me and my wife went before we're going to have our another kid. We came back from Mexico, and in Mexico, Dodger fans, they're like, Joe Kelly? And I'm like, yep. And, so the reach throughout, obviously the West Coast, Mexico, being home in California, it's a different kind of love. And I think it's more of a friendship type love as me being a Major League Baseball player. The fan base in St. Louis is great, in Boston, but that's more of like, oh, he's a sports, I like him because, he's on the Red Sox. So it's definitely different. And I think ultimately, Dodgers have the best fan base, and they appreciate, being true to yourself. And, that's a special bond that, will be in my heart and in their hearts forever, something that we'll have until we, obviously die.
No doubt. That's why you'll be doing book signings in Los Angeles.
100%.
Joe, thanks a lot for coming on. I know Dodger fans are loving every second of this to hear your voice, and you can see Joe Kelly when you go see the Dodgers. The White Sox and Dodgers share the same facility out there at Camelback Ranch, and you can bring your copy of the book, A Damn Near Perfect Game, and maybe Joe will sign it for you on the way to the backfields. And I miss you, Joe. You always made my life entertaining. Yeah, man. We used to have a great time talking trash in the clubhouse.
Oh, yes. We can't say what we say there, but yes, I do miss that. And yeah, if you have a book, if you have a book, I'll most likely sign it way more than if you had a card. So February 28th, it releases, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you can get books. So if you bring a copy, I'm going to be signing it no matter what.
There he is, the legend of Los Angeles, Chicago White Sox pitcher, Joe Kelly. Thanks, Joe. Talk to you soon.
All righty, DV. See you later.